Welcome to our second installment of Pop Art and Gridding. For this second part, you are going to need a photocopy of a cartoon character or characters. It can be a full body, it can be a close-up of a face. This picture does not have any background to it, but your picture is allowed to. You'll need a pencil, you'll need some scissors, and you will need a pattern. We have patterns in different square inch increments, all the way from 4 by 4 to 8 by 8 inches. Before we go ahead and use the pattern on our picture, there's a couple things that we need to keep in mind. Some of the pictures that you'll have printed out will have come with a border around it. It might be a rectangle, it might be something that seems close to square, but I still want you to use the pattern just to ensure that your image is in a perfect square. If it's not, and you do the folding process like I'm going to show you, then the result is going to be that your work is going to be distorted. Usually when students do this, it ends up being stretched out in one direction or the other. So if you have something like Nemo here, you would still want to make sure that you used one of the square patterns on top of it before you got started. An important thing to do is to find the right size pattern for your picture. So I have 3 different examples here in different sizes. Minnie, who is small, Batman, who's more of a medium, and then Superman, which is a large image. When I'm starting out with Minnie, I'm probably going to want to lean towards a smaller pattern. And the goal is to at least fit the part of the image that I'm going to want to recreate on my paper within the frame of your pattern. And a lot of times you'll be able to see your image right through the pattern, but if not, you could hold it up to the light and make sure that you get it either centered or positioned the way that you want it to be. So a 5 by 5 looks like it would work great for this particular image. With Batman, if I went with a 5 by 5, you can see right away that I'm not going to be able to fit all of him underneath the pattern. And if I really wanted to zoom in and I didn't really care about having his feet in there, perhaps I would go with something like a 5 by 5. But I think most people would want to bump up a little bit. You know, here I'm either going to lose part of his head or part of his feet or a little of each. It looks like 7 by 7 is really going to be more appropriate. And I can see Batman through the pattern here. I could center him in the middle of the pattern, and then, you know, I can do things with my background later. Or I could even slide him off to the side. It's not necessary that your work is centered. And this way I could have maybe Gotham City, a bat signal, you know, some other really interesting details that I add later of my own choosing to go with my character. And then lastly, we have a really large image. And the largest pattern I'm offering right now is an 8 by 8. You know, because our paper, when you have printer paper, once you've printed off your picture, is only going to be 8.5 in one direction at its maximum length. So going 8 by 8 is usually pretty safe. I would say find the part of your picture that you really want to focus on the most. Like if you want to include Superman, the word, with part of him, then just line it up over there. If you would like to go a little bit smaller and really just focus on his face and the S on his chest, you could even go with a smaller pattern, and that could work out really well for you. So it's just going to depend on what part of the picture you would like to zero in on. It is important that when you're using one of the patterns that it's touching the paper or is at least on the edge where you're going to trace. You can't have the pattern off of the paper at any time, because then you're not going to have a full square. And that is the whole point in us using the patterns. So I'm going to take my character here. I'm thinking a 7 by 7 or an 8 by 8 is going to be just fine. This 8 by 8 will work great. And it looks like her foot was kind of cut off, so I'm going to put her foot right on the edge. And then I'm just going to trace with my pencil. Make sure your pencil isn't sliding underneath because you want those really nice straight edges. Oops. And once it's traced, you're going to cut it out. Stay steady on that line. The reason why we're tracing this in a square format is because the paper that you did in the last video was gridded in a square format. So we want to make sure that we have 16 squares here, just like we have for our paper. Obviously, our image is not the same size. So I'm going to show you a quick and easy way without measuring to get this into 16 squares. Those. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is just fold my paper up from the top to the bottom. Line up your corners as best as you can and give it a good strong crease. And then you're going to fold this again in the same direction. Line up your corners and give it a good strong crease. Open it up. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 stripes. So I folded top to bottom the first time. Now I'm going to fold it side to side. So from the left side to the right side. Line up those corners, give it a crease. Line up the corners and give it a crease. And when you open it, you can see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 going across, 1, 2, 3, 4 going down, 4 by 4, 16 squares here, and 16 squares on our drawing paper. We'll see you next time for the last step in gridding pop art.